This is Adan, an 18-year-old Bedouin activist from the Negev desert in southern Israel. She grew up splitting her time between her mother's recognized village and her father's unrecognized village before moving to Canada for nearly a decade. An unrecognized village is not considered legal under Israeli law, blocking residents living in them from key aspects of state infrastructure. Spending her early childhood in an unrecognized village, studying in Jewish and Arab mixed schools before moving her entire life abroad. Israeli citizen, Bedouin, Arab, Palestinian, Adan spent her life grappling with conflicting identities that are now guiding how she approaches the situation in the Negev and how she wants to help her community.
My grandma, who is 80-something, living with no running water while I was just relaxing, having as much water as I want. It was very difficult for me, and I've always felt this sort of guilt, but at the same time, it was always so empowering. It was always a good reminder to me of what I'm fighting for and what I want to see change.
She was only back in Israel for the year to volunteer in Bedouin communities before starting university. But government plans for the Jewish National Fund to plant trees on disputed land near the Bedouin village of Sawa called her and hundreds of other demonstrators to the scene for multi-day protests, which quickly escalated into chaos.
The claims of ownership are one of the major elements that are causing the stagnation of the development of the Negev and are a constant source of conflict between the Bedouin population and the State of Israel. The State of Israel, the Israeli courts approved tree planting on this land, even though the resolution of this land ownership claim it hasn't been resolved. The courts approved tree planting on this area, noting A, that none of these ownership claims have held up to date, and B, even if this particular land ownership claim does hold up, tree planting would not pose a problem. Simply, title would be transferred to the owners as found by the court.
In English, Adan started gaining a following, showing the scenes of police shooting tear gas into crowds as demonstrators hurled stones and caught gas canisters to throw back. But one video spread like wildfire.
This is Palestine! It will remain Palestine, and this is the Bedouin land. We will not leave. We are staying here. Whether there is no house above our heads, whether all our men and women get arrested, one person is better than nothing. So please, come protest with us. Help us save Negev.
While many Bedouin leaders called to keep the protests a civic issue as citizens of Israel, Adan is part of a wave of younger Bedouins connecting the conflicts in Israel's Negev with the overall Palestinian cause. Adan's statements come as some Israelis fear that by Bedouins claiming Israeli land as Palestinian, there will be an increase in radicalized violence against Jews in the land. But at the same time, Adan says she has no problems with Jewish Israelis living in the land. She says that she's arguing for recognizing the unrecognized Bedouin villages, providing them with necessary infrastructure, and acknowledging their history in the Negev, instead of encouraging Bedouins to move to planned recognized villages. Since her initial video, Adan has been thrown into a world of social media activism that was almost completely new to her, where people started looking to the teen for answers.
It was very overwhelming to have that many faces on you, and I think nobody's political stance is the same as the next person's. So I was 100% sure that not everybody was going to agree with me, and I'm okay with not everybody agreeing with me. But it was just a lot of pressure of people asking, when's the next protest? Are there buses? Is it? It was so many questions, and it was overnight. Like so many interviews, and again, I'm very grateful, but it was very hard to keep up with it.
Though tree planting is what sparked the initial outrage, many Bedouins like Adan see this episode as part of a larger effort to expel them from the Negev. Graphic images from the tree planting protests made international headlines. But once the government paused the plans, so did the excitement.
Every movement dies down and people are just excited because it's a trend. Honestly, it hurts me deeply because this trend that you're choosing to follow on and to watch while you're sitting comfortably at home is not a trend for us. It's something that we've been living in for tens of years and we continue to live in to this day. I'm standing here today in front of the tent against demolition in Rahat.
Noise from last January's protests have died, but Adon hopes to use her initial boost in followers to keep the Negev on people's Instagram feeds.